Hello, everyone. Welcome to the third and final live event brought to you by the Goldsmiths BA Design cohort of 2020. My name is Jack Lowerson, and I'm going to be facilitating this event today. Returning audience members may have already glimpsed the eclectic range of students' work during our design writing readings event on Thursday and our film screenings last night. I'd like to thank Kaya Waria, Sophie Paul and Hannah Edwards for their commitment to initiating these, as well as to all those who have worked to pull our projects together as a virtual unified collective the past few months. If you enjoy the content you have engaged with today, you can view more from us on our Instagram at Hey Look Something Is Happening, and by ordering a copy of our publication from our Degree Show website. But for today, we are bites of happenings, pixelated happenings stretched and streamed worldwide. If you are joining us for the first time, you're sure to find a rich variety of methods, processes, and knowledge to take away. We will lead you through a host of exchanges, seminars, workshops, interviews, and performances. Perhaps they will amaze you, excite you, disgust you, terrify you, and if they do, we can safely say we've achieved our goal as designers. The panelists will be familiar with how the day will run. I'll begin by handing over to our first hosts, and thereafter each person will be introduced by the one before. Each happening lasts approximately 15 to 20 minutes or slightly longer, so we estimate the event will end between 3:30 and 4 p.m. British Standard Time. There will also be 2 5-minute intervals. Some outputs today may require audience members to interact face-to-face with processes being explored, in which case we'll invite you to join as a panelist, or you may be sent a link to contribute to a shared Google document in the chat section. There's also a Q&A chat available where you'll be able to type questions during and after the happenings. You are not obliged to stay for all the events, though we strongly encourage you to do so to support all the work today. This event is also being recorded so it can be uploaded to our YouTube channel tomorrow with closed captions for those not able to attend today. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over to our first participant, Hannah Edwards, who is going to start us off with a guided workshop exploring how materials can resonate emotional states. Over to you, Hannah.
Hi everyone, and welcome to this guided making workshop. The activity that I'm about to present to you allows you to engage with your inner child and your emotions through the act of playing instinctively. You can do this activity if you're feeling stuck, uninspired, inactive, weary, angry, tired, playful, etc. Doing it may help you to reconnect with your inner child, feel inspired, active, relaxed, uninhibited, motivated, happier, centered, grounded, and stable. Before we start the activity, I just want to say, if at any point you feel uncomfortable exploring your emotional state, feel free to stop. Also, if you want to turn your camera off or mute yourself so you don't feel like you're being watched, please do. So now you will only be able to hear my voice. We're going to do a quick body scan, which can help you to relax and pay attention to your body and how you're feeling right now. Begin by bringing attention into your body. You can close your eyes if that's comfortable for you. Notice your body seated wherever you're seated, feeling the weight of your body on the chair, on the floor. Take a few deep breaths. As you take a deep breath, bring in more oxygen, enlivening the body. As you exhale, have a sense of relaxing more deeply. As your mind begins to relax, allow your body to follow. As thoughts come into your mind, take notice and let them pass. If you get hung up on them for a few seconds, no worries, allow them to fade in and fade out. With every exhale, allow each part of your body to relax. You can notice your feet on the floor. Notice the sensations of your feet touching the floor. The weight and pressure, vibration and heat. You can notice your legs against the chair, pressure, pulsing, heaviness, lightness. If you're sat on a chair, notice your back against the chair. Bring your attention to your stomach area. Allow your stomach to rise and fall with no judgments as you breathe. If your stomach is tense or tight, let it soften. Take a breath. Notice your hands. Are your hands tense or tight? See if you can allow them to soften. Notice your arms. Feel any sensation in your arms. Let your shoulders be soft. Notice your neck and throat. Let them be soft. Relax. Soften your jaw. Let your face and facial muscles be soft. Relax. Then notice your whole body present. Take one more breath. Be aware of your whole body as best as you can. Take a breath. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes. I'll explain the ideas behind the activity at the end. But now I'd like you to gauge how you're feeling. Maybe you can think of a word that describes it, a colour, a texture. You could act it out using your body. You could even draw a shape that describes it. Whatever you do, capture how you are feeling right now. This doesn't have to be a feeling you particularly like or dislike. Just capture the way you feel. Now, I'd like you to go away and quickly find an object or material that describes how you feel right now in some way. Let's take the feeling of being stuck, for example. Are you stuck in the house during quarantine? Do you feel stuck at this stage in your life? Do you feel like you're stuck in the mud, perhaps? Well, you could go and get some mud from your garden if you have one. If you don't have mud, you could get something else that's sticky, like glue or sticky tape, and bring it back. You could get a series of objects. You could get objects of the same colour that reflect how you're feeling right now. I'm going to pause and give you 3 minutes to find something. And in 3 minutes, I'll start again. So quickly go away and find some objects that reflect how you're feeling right now. You can use the wheel on the screen to help you think about some words that help describe how you're feeling if you're lost for words. So if you've not managed to find something, I'll just tell you again. You can find an object or material that describes how you feel in some way. It could be a series of objects. You could get objects of the same colour, objects that reflect how you're feeling right now. You could get a set of pens, a blanket, some flour, some Play-Doh. Something that you can play with right now. So it's almost been 3 minutes. Hopefully you found what you need to find. Okay. Now you should have found your objects or object. I'd like you to play with whatever you've brought. Explore it. There's no right way to play, so just do what feels right for you. If you're able to, form your object or objects into the shape of your feeling. If you can't change your object's form, take your feeling out on this object. Play with your feeling in relation to this object. Act out your feeling. Really get into how this feeling feels for you. It may help to close your eyes as you explore the feeling, but just play. Keep playing until you're satisfied with what you've made or done. If you're not satisfied, keep playing. Enjoy the act of playing. When you're satisfied with what you've done, embrace the feeling of being productive. You've just made something. You've just done something, but you've also played. If you're not satisfied, keep playing. Keep enjoying the act of playing. When you're satisfied with what you've made, congratulate yourself. Take pride in yourself. Take pride in what you've just made and allow that feeling to get bigger. If you're not quite ready yet, you can carry on playing while I tell you a bit about the origin of this activity. It's based on an activity in the user guide I created called Mud Play. Mud Play uses mud to explore emotions, thoughts, and feelings, but today you can use whatever you like. Many of us relate to playing in mud as children, or generally playing in an instinctive and carefree way, which some of us often don't carry on into adulthood. During my research, I found that in 2007, researchers at the University of Bristol found that bacteria normally found in soil, called Mycobacterium vaccae, activated parts of the brain that release serotonin. The cancer patients who were treated with the bacteria reported increases in their quality of life. The endorphin, called serotonin, contributes to well-being and happiness, and a lack of it is thought to cause depression. This 2007 research left the lead researcher, Dr. Chris Lowry, wondering if all of us should be spending more time playing in the dirt. I've inserted the reference to my research in the chat. As for the body scan that we did at the start, it's a practice used in psychology and neuroscience, movement therapy, mindfulness, and meditation. According to the Stanford School of Medicine, the purpose of this practice is to cultivate the ability to notice what is being experienced in the body. It's a particularly useful practice to learn self-awareness about how physical experience is tied to emotional experience. So that's all from me. Thanks for sticking around. I hope you've enjoyed playing. Perhaps you could do it more often. To find more about the activities I've made, you can find me on Instagram at Things I've Made or in Body Change Toolkit. I'll paste the links into the chat. Next up, we have Francine Chang and Yijun Xiong demonstrating their interactive website and their research process.
Hi guys. So Jun and I will be sharing our screen and bringing you through our interactive website, which you'll get to interact with later on.
Okay, I'm gonna share the screen. Can anyone see the?
Yep, it's on.
How do I? Okay.
Have you ever questioned humans' control over nature? Do you ever notice the inconsistencies within our ideals of what we assume we're capable of? The power to organize, to turn the natural world into one that is man-made. We live in a world of human design, design and over-design. A large number of designs are created to re-engineer and transform the environment through technology to suit human needs. Resources are mass-generated to improve humans' chances of survival and later making life more comfortable. Advancing their social evolution through techno-nature, otherwise known as the process of civilization.
Rain falls onto asphalt ground. Clog pours under glaze. Channeled into drains, washed underground. The human environment, impervious to its surroundings. Fabricated for fabrication. Each step further away from its nature. A testament to the measurement of labor, of value. The natural world is harvested, industrialized, repackaged, replacing Earth's natural authority, a techno-nature saturated with human activity. The pinnacle of a new civilization, floating above the natural world. Artificiality is instilled within the water, cut off from the ecological cycle. There is impurity within the artificial and the natural, a geological narrative of cross-contamination. Contamination, the term, spoken like a plague. Mutating, artificial life forms, artificial life. Pollution, filtration, desperate. Sanitization, disinfection. Preserving. Some form of alien nature.
The Capital City simulation presents an open-ended world, a speculative design experience where users are placed within a technologically redesigned future. In this world, design enables people to control the majority of natural elements, from water to air and organic matter. We designed fictional spaces and combined it with documented footage of our real-world research to spatially situate users within this new surrounding. So now we're going to show you a quick walkthrough of our website.
Can anyone see it?
No.
No?
Oh, yeah, it's up.
Okay.
People are asked to situate themselves within this speculative scenario.
Please verify your name. Please verify your name. Perfect. Now I'm going to give you an induction tour. Is this your first time out of your district? I thought so. Not many people have the privilege of a private isolation vehicle through the tunnels of Capital City. We are almost at Capital Industries HQ. As a special treat, I will bring up a drone display of the outer surface feed. Capital Industries HQ was built at the end of the 21st human civilization. That is why the building style is so unique, and the materials are not made of the polysynthetic plastic of today's residences. All right, we have arrived. Please ensure that you are safely protected. Welcome to the management facility of all of Capital Water Services. Here, Capital Water staff can remotely control the management of water from its collection to its transport, filtration, packaging, commercialization, as well as its final distribution. You will be stationed to manage water collection and filtration based on your past work experience. However, remember that everything is strictly confidential to your role. Breaches in the security of information can and will be traced back to you.
So Capital City presents an almost grotesque human-nature relationship, where nature has been entirely alienated. It highlights the resulting consequences of pursuing a purely anthropocentric ideal. The character's distrust of the unorganized natural state is also projected within this narrative. Within the Capital City simulation, users are asked to suspend their disbelief and immerse themselves in a world without their existing biases. The user has a God's perspective of this world system to oversee how design artifacts, characters, and the urban setting plays their roles in this network of techno-nature. We immerse users in this bizarre but plausible techno-future. Techno-nature is a design part of the human social network. It plays an important role in shaping the way people interact with their surroundings, as well as how society self-organizes. Jun, can you go back to the presentation slide?
Am I not?
No, it's still on the website.
What? So sorry. Do you want to read that again? Because
No, it's fine. Just go.
Okay. What? How do I? Oh, sorry. Sorry, guys. Okay, so that's a walkthrough for the website, interactive website.
And it shows the different systems that you get to interact with. And within the context of this website, it gives people an idea of the library of information that we've collected for design research. And it doesn't necessarily instruct you on what to do, but the task is to explore this surrounding. And then the more you explore, the more you understand where you're in, and also the context of Capital City itself.
Continue.
Okay. The user is presented with a narrative interwoven through the complex urban systems of organization, often beyond an individual's control. We hid clues and informations in different contexts to provide users with different interpretations. It's up to the user to decide how they want to interact with educational clues that they encounter. Instead of presenting a fixed scenario from our point of view, we aim to use these clues as guides for users to respond to a situation, encouraging users to reflect on the system and the world we live in. In Capital City, we provided information for various users in society with different knowledge backgrounds and cognitive abilities. We aim to create an experience that motivates people to infer based on their own personal experiences and skills. This is to raise an individual's awareness of what is happening or might happen in their daily lives. By having a range of people participate in this world, we aim to use this idea of an interactive library to engage people from all walks of life in important matters and have design act as a catalyst to raise questions and conversations. As we are aware that the human-nature relationship involves a vast network of actors and different people in society, as designers, we lack the expertise in different industries. We won't be able to drive this narrative on our own. Through design, we wish to encourage them to utilize their social power to make positive change. So now we're going to let you explore the website on your own, and if you've got any questions, just drop it in the chat and we'll answer whatever comes by.
Okay, I'll send the link in the Zoom. Is it? Oh, here.
So if anyone has any questions, oh, okay. Daphne, what software did you use to make your 3D model? It's a combination of using 3D Max to model some of the individual components and then putting it together in Lumion. And then in Lumion, we get to kind of film it from different perspectives. And we kind of combine that with the interactive website in order to make it seem like the users are in a 3D space. Oh, Mavis asks, what was the greatest challenge you two faced besides the virus? Jin, you wanna?
I think it might be we work in distance because, well, I'm in London currently and Fran was in Singapore, and the time difference and hard to communicate, but then we figured it out.
And I guess the hard part about it was also because like it was a bit hard to communicate. It wasn't the same as having the technical workshops in school where we could just pop in and ask questions. So a lot of the times we really had to try to make it work on ourselves. And if we had any additional questions, then we dropped them an email or just ask friends to help out. Emma, how did you manage to work together? Like who has what skills and how do you collaborate?
Right. I guess we all have different interests in terms of design. Like, well, I'm more interested in how information can, how information is conveyed and how we use the way information is presented to change people's perspective and make changes, and Fran is more interested in how urban society change the how do you say
how different types of design in urban societies might change the way people live and change the way society operates as a whole. And also I really like the idea of like creating narratives through design and kind of storytelling in order to engage people with design research or engage people with social issues. Ash, is 3D Max the main software taught in related workshops, or was this a personal choice? In related workshops, we were taught to use was it Revit? No, Rhino. But personally, I had more experience in 3D Max, and also because without working in school, it was the software that we could access the easiest because of student educational software. So we made do with that. Valerie, where did you draw your inspiration, and what was the personal motivation behind this exploration? I'm going to talk about Venice because that's the starting point of where we decided to research on the whole idea of ecology and what we called ecological colonization, which was humans' control over the natural environment in sometimes artificial ways. In that sense, Venice was really interesting because the time we were doing the research, Venice had the worst flood in 50 years. So we actually went down when it was flooding and to see how people self-organized around these natural disasters and natural issues. And that kind of led our project to speculate a future where what would happen if this approach towards nature and this approach towards protecting human society was applied on like a worldwide or an entire city level to extreme. And Jun, do you want to talk about how the virus kind of influenced you at first as well?
Yeah, when we were at Venice, wait, let me just share the screen to show the process we did the thing. Where?
I think it's the next slide, the Venice stuff.
Yeah, well,
yeah,
those stuff, and that's from Brian, but that's our initial.
Yeah, so people were like wearing protective equipment and like creating stairs just so that they could stand in the flood and look at architectural monuments, which was a really strange thing to be in.
Yeah, and we started to use the material we gathered from the site research to start creating our storyboard to try to create this fictional wall. And by doing that, we're gain more and more understanding of this complex problems. So that's kind of our process. We started to creating this world by trying out video, testing out video with visual presentations and narration.
I must say Jun did a really cool thing. So her friend was in Wuhan during the lockdown. So basically she got him to like go out into the roads and film footages with a drone and everything while the streets were entirely empty. And it was super bizarre to see like a densely populated city just like disappeared.
Yeah,
no one on the streets and everything.
In the beginning of the Wuhan outbreak. Well, I come from Wuhan, so kind of combine these two concepts. What else?
Oh, okay. Ash, for your question, if you want to practice at home, I would still highly suggest 3D Max, and then from there you can export the object files into Rhino back when you get back to school and everything, so it shouldn't be a problem. T, what do you think are the challenges of this format for presenting information in terms of engaging the audience and general public and being an effective method for education? Jun, that's your area.
Sorry, wait, I'm sorry. Processing.
Oh, yeah.
Well, basically, we don't want our interpretation on this method to determine what user to see this question. Basically, within the website, we trying to use smaller like terms we use. For example, in the home page, it tells you you are a manager giving you a role, and then wait, sorry, I need to organize a bit. Basically, we trying to create a scenario to put the user into that situation, the fictional world, and then we hide a lot of information in the website to guide people interpret this information instead of telling you what you should do. Because by doing that, we want to encourage people to reflect on this matter themselves instead of telling them an exact answer. So wait, does it making any?
Yeah, that makes sense. Oh, Mavis, if budget wasn't a problem, what would have been the ideal outcome? I mean, ideally, we definitely like to work on like projects, social projects with like government agencies, museums, and things like that. Given budget wasn't a problem, clients wasn't a limit, we got to do whatever we want. And we think that this is a super, super interesting educational tool of the future as well, to engage like a wide variety of people in, I mean, not just problems and solutions, but like even museum artifacts or histories behind things, that like applying to all forms of education and using design as a way to bridge education and interactivity and, well, games.
Yeah, I guess it's the idea of that we provide different context from different aspects of perspective. Instead of telling what you should do, it's a way to more like encourage people to critique it on their own instead of like you should do this and you should do that.
I mean, especially now that the world is no longer that simple. There's no black or white, there's no right answer. And like you are surrounded by multiple discourses within society where you can't tell real or fake from the media and things like that. So I think it's super important for people to learn how to engage with these social issues. And we don't expect people to immediately know how to do these things, but perhaps design could be a bridge for people to be led into this frame of thinking and this framework of exploring the world around them. Mm-hmm. Right, so I think we should move on to the next person. So going on would be Rachel Orphan, and she's going to present a workshop on her collaging process and a demonstration of her postal outcomes. Rachel?
Hello? Oh, thank you. Yijun and Francine. Okay. So hello, my name is Rachel and my project is called Project Espionage Designed to Deceive. My project is a graphic exploration into the lives of spies in Vauxhall. Today I will be taking you through a couple of my project's processes. We will be making a collage and turning it into something you can disseminate through the postal service. The purpose of this exercise is to revive collage as an act of political subversion. Okay, so let's get started. There we go. We will start by watching some spies and collecting some data from my site of investigation outside MI6 HQ in Vauxhall. I've been using CCTV cameras to do this since lockdown. So the site I'm using is windy.com/webcams, and this is the camera that I'll be focusing on. So you can see different shots from the 24-hour period. We will be counting the number of people, cars, bikes, and buses we can see in each of the frames. You can also collect data from near where you're isolating, but I already have some data ready for us to use today. So we will go back to me. Okay, so we have some data from a previous day. So we've got 127 cars, 20 people, 16 buses, and 10 bikes. The next element of our collage will be made from personal narratives. I suggest you either write a statement about something that is personal to you, or you can gather some objects from around you. So the objects I've chosen to use today, here are a couple of them. So I've got the book I'm reading, and then a few sort of things I found around me. So that's a bottle cap and then some ceramics. You can scan these objects, or you can photograph them on a white background. So I will share my screen and show you. I scanned these objects, so here's a few that I scanned for us to use in our collage. The final element of our collage is a media narrative. So if you go to BBC The Papers, you'll find some newspaper covers, and you can choose a couple of those to use. So one of the ones we're using today is the cover from the Metro yesterday. We'll be putting together our collage in Photoshop, but you can do this by hand if you print out the different elements. There isn't time to show you each stage of the collage making process, but I'll take you through the key elements, and you can contact me afterwards if you'd like more prescriptive instructions. So the most important part of our collage is the data. So you're going to be using various graphic design decisions to encode the data into the collage. So for example, today I have chosen to present the data through objecting the 127 cars that were spotted on the webcam. I sometimes use Coolers.com to choose a color scheme, and I digitally trace, so there's some examples here, the scanned objects before including them in the collage, and I also do that with the newspaper headlines. Okay, so once you're happy with your collage, this is an example here, you can try inverting the colors. I find that creates an interesting variant. So we go back to me. Okay, so once you're happy with your collage, it's time for the postal part of this workshop. I decided to disseminate my work log systems of distribution. Also, I've been thinking about how the envelope is one of the last remaining blank surfaces in our oversaturated society. So our experiment will really stand out as it passes through the system. So the first thing you need to do is print out your collage on A4 normal paper. So we're going to use this to make the envelope. I've made a template by taking out an ordinary envelope. So if you use that to cut round your collage, you'll be left with a shape like this. Don't forget to cut the notches out. There you go. So you need to fold along the lines where the notches are, and then stick the different panels down until you are left with this sort of shape as a normal envelope. There are a few different ways you can address this envelope. I have a few examples of things I've tried. So this is just a handwritten one, and then we have one that's been stamped, and then one that's a ransom note one. So my personal favorite way of doing it is using these stamps here on sticker paper, and then you can apply them directly to the envelopes. That's what I've done here. You can also use the sticker paper to create some things to go inside the envelope. So I've used them before to make postcards, because then you can stick it onto some thicker paper and stickers. So these are different examples of collages I've made over the past few months. It's up to you what you choose to post today. In this example, I have included a postcard, some stickers, a poster, a ransom note. I've also been making lots of ransom notes throughout this project, so I've included one of those as well, and a zine. This zine has the collage instructions, so you can send those to someone so they can make the collage too. I created another version of what I've made today. So I have a blank one here, and if you'd like me to post this to you, if you send me a private message on here with your postal address, then I will send that to you. So that was very quick, but thank you so much for attending my workshop. If you'd like to make a collage, or if you have more questions about my work, please find me on Instagram @RachelOrphan, or send me a message via my website, which is theorphanstudio.xyz. Feel free to ask some questions and I'll answer them throughout the rest of this event. Thank you. So up next is Moon. Her work is entitled Witch Poet, A Textual Healing Voyage. So I hope you enjoy. Thank you.
Honest she who was, she who is, and she who will be. The divine feminine wisdom resides in all. You are invited to delve into her sea. It is only in the last 1,000 years that gravity has become the prescribed reality. Anyone who operated outside of its sphere was sentenced to death. This was to keep women in their place, to prevent them from flying. You see, gravity is just a fallacy that keeps us bound to the ground. Prior to this time, women were in full flight. It has always been known since ancient times that women flew. In ancient Egypt, men and women were equals, but were noted for their individual powers. Women were symbolized by the vulture. Women had the power of flight. Women were the first astronauts. Women were the first to walk on the moon. Women are the original spacefarers. Man had to put on a spacesuit and get inside a rocket to get to the moon. Women, on the other hand, just waited until the portal was fully open. Energized by her light, they would simply rise and take the flight, straight through her open window. On the moon, she would forage for knowledge, returning to Earth with that knowledge to feed the people. When the moon was conjunct to the sun, her window was dark, closed. At this time, women would sit and be still, meditating, visioning. This was the time of bloodshed, when she became wed to the earth, bleeding back into her, fertilizing the soil. The menfolk could see the wonders of blood upon the soil, and were aware of women's ascension and its link to the menses. They knew of the power, yet they understood nothing. In turn, they drew blood to attain power, justification for their wars. What they brought forth was ascension of another kind, death, blood loss. Blood lust broke the trust between man and Mother Earth. Still to this day, they have no understanding. The futility of the battlefield still rage. Why, we cry. The reapers sigh. Didn't you know? Blood makes the grass grow. Blood makes the grass grow. Blood makes the grass grow. Kill, kill, kill. As women were prohibited to fly, they evolved into earthbound beings, full of fear, remembering the persecution of their ancestors who had stepped outside of the law. No one dared to fly again. In recent times, there have been whisperings of this gift reappearing, lightings everywhere, inexplicable reports of women floating or flying through the air. My question to you is, do you dare to try? Do you dare to fly? An invitation to treat. A time to embrace the truth, no more lies and deceit. So listen carefully. When the moon is open, she allows those who offer a blessing to enter to the other side, go deeply into the infinite and take any form. At first you will be surprised, as you will be blinded by the light. There will be no more sight, not needed on the other side. There is only inner light. You will be greeted by all time, who will offer you a ride, the ride of your life, a journey into the future's future, which lies yet on another side. Are you one to question, or one who takes a chance? One thing I can tell you about the other side of the other side is that there lies the greatest cosmic dance. But just the word of warning, the deeper that you go, you will start to lose your mind and all sense of time. For the other side of the other side, all earthly traits are left behind. On the other side of the other side, Astral will be your guide. Beware of she, the queen of infinite dimensions, as she will want to keep you by her side. She'll whisper in your ear and lead you to yet another side. Will you be offered many a dance, but you must only accept one, as you must get back to the other side of the other side of the other side before the light of the sun. When the portal starts to wane, 29.5 days, no re-entry to Earth can be gained. So tell me, are you one to question, or one to take a chance? The other side awaits you. There lies the greatest cosmic dance.
Thank you for listening. This is the beginning of a meditation soundscape that I created as part of my project. So I'll put the link in the chat below if you'd like to listen to the whole experience. It's 40 minutes long. I'm now going to pass you on to Ollie Pratt, who's doing an undisclosed presentation, possibly revealing Ollie's work around the construction of a lathe using found objects from Peckham Rye Lane.
Hello, sorry, just due to a previous engagement, Ollie is unable to join us today, but in his place instead we have Natalie Galvau, who is going to be presenting. Just need to check.
Do you want me to say it?
Why don't, yeah, you introduce what you'll be doing.
I'm going to be discussing my process using Bayesian script writing, and then I'm going to try and do a small workshop where we kind of write as a collective and create an atmosphere in some of the narratives that I've collected during my project. So I'll quickly just share my screen. Okay, cool. So yeah, so project overview, then we're going to explore the process of creating Bayesian scripts. So attempts on their lives and online archive. Recognizing a tension between the want to publish legitimate truths and the commodification of a media story triggered within me an engrossed curiosity of the role of the meta-narrative in relation to the refugee crisis. The questionable reliability of the stories within the media begin to pose interesting questions when discussing the tangibility of what we're taught through the use of meta-narratives and how these teachings come to dictate the collective subconscious. Meta-narratives are understood as narratives that legitimize truths. Stories such as the Bible, the media, and the historical systems of power all contribute to the main ideologies that inform our understandings of the world. These narrative platforms are used in our everyday and follow a common narrative structure, the eternal cycle of the call, the descent, and the rebirth. These literary structures and archetypes are common across various cultures in both Western and Eastern societies, consequently suggesting that they are a result of the knowledge and experiences we share as a collective through the meta-narratives we consume. The role of the micro-narrative within a community which relies so heavily on the meta-narrative of media is to challenge these ideologies that are being put in place and offer new platforms for understanding of the past and expectation of the future and a general understanding of how we should act. This form of narratives provides a link between the single identity and the collective narrative and allows the ability to place oneself in multiple narratives at a time. It is with this notion of the micro-narrative and reader-narrator relationships that Attempts on Their Lives begins to explore how these new types of narrative can reconstruct the collective unconscious to disassociate from the racist and biased ideologies of, specifically, the Western media, with reference to the refugee crisis. Attempts in Their Lives archives a social movement through renditions of verbatim script, spoken theatre, and collected artefacts. The episodic post-dramatic style fragments featured in the Attempts of Their Lives scripts, denies the idea of fixed identity or linear narrative, and offers multiple perspectives on one central theme without the interjection of the meta-narrative state voice. Sharing narratives of personal accounts, feelings, histories, interactions, and ideas, which are completely disassociated from the influence of the media, show the refugees as products of circumstance rather than as victims of a social drama. This narrative approach highlights the script as part of the world rather than its signifier, presenting drama of life instead of the drama in life, offering an intimate glimpse at the beginning of a new understanding of reality, both emotionally and intellectually, the beginning of a more philosophical approach to the crisis through that of a shared story. The full archive can be found at www.attemptsoftheirlives.com. So now I'll go on to explain how I use verbatim theatre in my project. So verbatim theatre is not a form, it's a technique. It is a means rather than an end. Verbatim theatre is using the words of real people to tell their own stories. These words can be live, could be an interview of an experience, could be found notes or diary entries. My collection even includes extracts from WhatsApp chats and from different laws and regulations. Verbatim theatre is real and powerful and offers different groups of people the opportunity to give voice to people who might otherwise go voiceless, which is also essentially what a micronarrative offers too. This style of narrative transcends all forms of reality theatre. It takes authentic material and puts it on stage, unaltered in context, yet edited in form. When creating my script, I actually left the transcripts completely unedited. I instead built the narrative further through stage directions, props, movements, etc. All these details help to set the scene and determine the pace and tone of the script and kind of communicate how they should be read. So, for example, this is a poem that was written as part of a poetry and response workshop. So the bit in bold is the original poem, and the bits highlighted in green are kind of the stage directions that I've added in to kind of set the scene. I have a voice recording of this as well. So this was spoken by the girl who wrote it.
Fade in. Two characters sit smoking at a coffee table, discussing the culture of a coffee bean. Their backs are to the audience and the coffee table, with 2 mugs of coffee sit between the characters. Everything is neat and minimalist. They are there alone, absorbed in conversation and blanketed by the sharp smell of coffee and smoke. In unison, they pick up their coffees and exhale a puff of smoke, one leg folded over the other, tapping to a silent beat of which the following words follow. I think the ritual of a coffee and a cigarette is of universal understanding and inspiration. If only we would focus more on the things that connect us. Tapping continues as the scene plays out. They turn their heads to look at each other, showing their profiles to the audience. They nod to their coffee mugs and turn their heads to face forwards once again. Fade out.
I also have this one, The Happy Ending, which was a transcribed conversation between me and Sue Clayton, a film activist. I also have a voice recording of this.
Fade in. An empty shelf in a sea of books. She sees me looking at the gap in her collection. They were dusty, so I wiped them down with a damp cloth, but find that it had made them moldy. A whole shelf of books thrown out and yet barely a dent made in her vast collection of literature. Wall to wall, books on film, poetry, politics, migration lined the flat. Some books were thumped to death while others sat with unchecked spines. I could tell in which topic her passion lay. I used to work for Channel 4, but now I work for myself, she began. They always wanted happy endings, and were too concerned with views. They sent me out in a small team to Calais to document the refugee situation out there. It was shocking and horrible. There were gas bombs going off all day, and big bonfire and police raid through the night. Me and my team has 3 mobile phone nicked during our time there. She laughed almost reminiscently. When we brought back the footage, we were told it was too long. They wanted us to outdone the footage to 5 minutes. They also wanted us to create a happy ending, something that the viewers would find satisfying. But how could we do that? And how could we encompass the amount of devastation and destruction that is happening in the jungle to 5 minutes? We couldn't create that satisfiable ending. There was no hope for these kids. They had nowhere to go. There wasn't happy ending to create. Fade out.
So now that you've seen how I've edited my scripts, I kind of thought it'd be like a cool fun idea to collectively edit a few of the other narratives I've created throughout my project. There are a few rules. Don't overthink it. Try to create an atmosphere which replicates the emotion you've experienced when you first kind of read the original transcripts, and then try and translate that into how you kind of set the scene. Don't delete other people's notes. This is a collective kind of project thing. Read and like appreciate what they've written, and if you have anything that you want to add that's maybe a bit different, do it in a different color next to it so people can see how like it's been interpreted in different ways. Jump between the scripts. You don't have to stick to one script. Interweave your ideas and overlap thoughts. Have fun with it. There's no wrong answer. So the potential ways of editing the transcripts. You can add a prop, just like a little note saying what should be there. So for example, in the Coffee and Smoke transcript, I had the table and the two protagonists with their coffee mugs. You can describe an imagined movement for the characters, so the way that the characters cheersed in the first transcript. Describe a scene of which the transcript took take place. Kind of imagine what else would be there. Is there background noise? Are there other people? Also consider who the script is kind of talking to. Is it talking to the audience, or is it talking to maybe someone else that's in the room? You can cut sentences to change the pace. So break up sentences, have like a little break or a beat in brackets, just to have that like beat that it follows. I've got a link to good music to write to. So yeah, click on that, have like a listen. And yeah, so these are the following transcripts. Let your voice bring hope, perceptions of fear, and oh, forgot to change that one, typo. The chilling effect. I'll put the Google Doc link on the Zoom chat now. Ooh, how do I do it? So hopefully that works. If it doesn't, let me know. You should all have access to it to edit it. So if you just go down to the transcripts and just start writing. Great, yeah, so just think about like what sounds you'd hear in the background. Powerful boom is good, yeah. Putting emphasis on that, I like it. So transcript 1 is a poem, transcript 2 is a conversation that I captured, and transcript 3 is another conversation which I had about Sea-Watch and the sea rescues, and how there's a lot of conflict in that from the Sea-Watch crew trying to save these refugees that are drowning, but the police boats are coming past and saying like, no, you don't have the right to save these people. So there's a lot of conflict in that. A really interesting text, worth a read. So all the guidelines and how, like, different ideas of what you could do to the scripts are all in the same document. It's like the page before the first transcript. So everything I've just read out is in this document if you want to look back. Yeah, I had, so when I kind of started writing the Chilling Effect, I kind of imagined it on a boat as well, kind of like that's like stormy sea. Yeah, definitely. Okay, so I'll give you about 4 more minutes for this exercise, and then I think we're going to take a 5-minute break before the next person does their takeover. Yeah, I love this anonymous tutor one, where it's talking about like what they're dressed in. Dressed in a heavy raincoat. That's great. Wow, you guys are going proper eerie with the chilling effect. It's great. A figure sits in a dusty, I can't see it. Oh yeah, dusty flat alone. They're hunched over a small desk next to a window. They're writing a letter. Yeah, I see that too, actually. With just like a small lamp. Someone's asking for perceptions of fear, who they're writing to. Maybe it's not one specific person. Mm. Yeah, so I think that's it for me. We're gonna have to go for a 5-minute break now. But you guys are welcome to carry on editing it. What you've come up with so far is really great. But yeah, thanks for joining me in this workshop. Back to you, Jack.
Thank you, Natalie. That was great. Yeah, I always love a good writing workshop. Yeah, like Natalie says, we're just going to go and take a 5-minute break now, so feel free to go and freshen up and whatever, and then we'll be back for our next panelist, which I believe is Emma Irwin. So see you then. Okay, yeah, I think we'll sort of get going again about now. Hope everyone's back, but not sure. Maybe give it another minute. We'll give it another minute.
Okay. While we're just waiting for everyone else to come back, could I ask any panelist who is comfortable to please turn their camera on, just so I've got some faces to talk to rather than my laptop camera, please? It would help me out a lot. Thank you. Oh, hey, everyone's here. Amazing. Yeah. Right, okay, I think I'm just going to start. It's past now, so.
Yes. Do you want me to introduce you, or do you want to just go for it?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Introduce me.
Cool. Okay, so now we're going to have a talk from Emma, who is delivering a micro lecture on her frustrations and design collaborations with the internet, which should be interesting. So over to you, Emma.
Thank you, Jack. Okay, so my project was about the internet, and it was sort of born from this frustration that I had with the internet, but also like intense feelings of like both anxiety and awe together, because like not because of internet data or not because of internet content, but it was more like what the internet provided that was almost like subconscious stuff. So whether that was like the semiotics of it, like how you use the internet, or if you've got, for example, like real here and virtual here, it's like the stuff that sort of lies in the middle that you sometimes don't notice. And I was trying to sort of dive in and pull that stuff out. So I've got some slides. I'm going to talk through, I haven't scripted anything, I'm just going to talk through, but please feel free to stop me or ask questions at any point. So what I did was I realized that I could map my life against technology for the most part. And you can see somewhere in the middle, like around 2008, when I was 11, I got my first laptop, and that sort of made the world of the internet available to me. But also the fact that I could do this and map so many things like alongside my life was really scary, and I wanted to unpick that. So this is me when I was a kid playing a Nintendo DS, sitting in, I think, like a spinny chair, and then the VR headsets is people watching like a VR experience, and I was trying to collage things to sort of understand the space that I was potentially looking at. And this is my mum with a phone strapped to her waist in about 2001. And again, it's kind of like we're tethered to this online network via all these devices. And Mark Fisher like describes us to be tethered to this network, tethered to cyberspace via like laptops, smartphones, all of these things. And he sort of talks about us having to be constantly available, and never being able to switch off. Like we're not fully expected to work all the time, we're just expected to be ready to work all the time. So that kind of fits in with this feeling of anxiety that I had. And I started to think, okay, so is this to do with the web? Is this to do with how we use the web? Is it to do with like interactions, like menus, buttons, drop downs, functionality? Or is it to do with icons, you know? And I've tried to start grouping them. So the red ones are like arrow gestures, and then you've got some like thumbs and hands, you've got clicker icons, cursors, just trying to understand what it was about the internet. I looked at color. I was like, is it perhaps these like pure digital colors that I'm fascinated with? I don't know. And then can I try and visualize this space that I'm looking at and try and understand it through perhaps texture or color or pattern? And then hardware, you know, is it the fact that we've got computers, or is it like internet data centers? Just sort of looking for clues, you know. And that was when I started thinking about the kind of absurdist nature of what I was doing. And in Waiting for Godot by Samuel Beckett, there's this monologue by Lucky where he's sort of like rambling in nothingness, like grappling with meaning meaninglessly, and he can't find any way to express how he's feeling. So this resonated a lot. And he's sort of saying, namely, concurrently, simultaneously, what is more, for reasons unknown, but time will tell. And I sort of felt like the internet was the same, like you're constantly clicking through stuff, but you're never actually going anywhere. So that's just a redacted monologue to try and, you know, unpick that a little bit. And then what I started to do was to make text. So what I did was I took some of Mark Fisher's stuff, I took some Waiting for Godot, I took some of Stanley Donwood's text about sort of this being constantly available to work, like traveling to work in the dark, staying in the office all day and then traveling home in the dark. And the book is called If You Lived Here, You'd Be Home by Now. You know, like if you were at the office all the time, then you would never go home, but it sort of defeats the whole point. Yeah, so then that manifested in me like taking little chunks of text from each of these that sort of made sense to me, and then recompiling that into this piece, which I call Living Internet. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to read the bright green highlighted bits with the black text, just because that's like one category of words that emerged. So endless possibilities, laptops make ends meet, another dimension, any time of day, unknown destinations, wires in the sky, super fast, obsolete, no building, only exists online, nothing special, free entry, open 24 hours, nothing, temporary graphic interface, rapid, instant, looks good, nothing special, no escape, endless possibility, zero potential, instant entertainment, thumbs up approval, hyper connected, static. So you can kind of get a feeling there of like me starting to look between the internet for these things. And this is just how I categorize the words to sort of try and understand. So the ones that are my favorite are these first person malaise statements, like, no, I've had enough, give me some information, no, I want to buy something, like this internal conflict you have with the internet. And in Cultures of Internet by Rob Shields, he says about the crisis of boundaries between like people and places because of the internet, or crisis of boundaries between people and technologies. And one of the things that came up that I thought was quite interesting was someone talking about having, when the internet first came out in like 91, I think it was, people were allowed to access the internet through cafes. But one of the things that was most like widely accessible because of this was pornography online. So people would go into these internet cafes, and like some people would be having a coffee with the kids while other people would be going to use the computer to access like inappropriate imagery. So there was like the first sort of initiation of this crisis of boundaries. And so I started to reappropriate images that I had already found to describe this. So far away is close at hand in images of the internet. And then this one is perhaps more fitting to the crisis of boundaries, like just say where you want to be. I'll take you anywhere you want to go. I can turn you on and I can make you happy. And for me, that's kind of like what the internet promises, but it's this unfulfilled promises and futures cancelled kind of thing. So these are just more text experiments that I did. And I was also trying to understand my feeling of anxiety towards the internet. And Heidegger says that which is anxiety is inducing is not, it doesn't have like immediate threats of harmfulness. So for example, with the internet, like nothing about it is immediately threatening. But what Heidegger's statement implies when you apply it to the internet is that it's what lies within, around and between the internet that's perhaps anxiety inducing. So I wanted to bring that out and understand that. I don't know how long I've been going about 9 minutes, so I'll stop in 5. Just again, some more explorations. So I'm looking at icons, and this image was one that really stuck with me, the 404 image not found. And I think it was because it was sort of the same thing of non-place that the internet is. Like every browser window is the same. Yeah, so again, more gestures, like clicking is where I want to go, pointing at what I want to see, it's what I want to do. It's indicative, it's gesture, it's instant, it's impulsive, it's inquisitive. But that still wasn't tapping into this feeling enough. So I started to make objects about these things, you know, making a clicker counter that would perhaps change color each time someone clicked. Then maybe like a sticker printer that would print a clicker each time someone clicked, just trying to quantify these things and find something physical to hold on to, because the problem I found with the internet was there was nothing sort of tangible. It was all sort of up in cyberspace, and nothing grounding about it. So then what I was talking about with the image not found image, this is a LED screen that was programmed to just scroll endlessly. So it was like a image never found image. And that's in relation to Auger's theory of non-place. And a non-place, the way I interpreted it in relation to the internet is like a space of transient. So it could be like a bus stop where, you know, a bus stop is the same wherever you go on the planet, but it's the same with the internet. Like you don't, like there's nothing to hold on to there. It's just sort of like the same. It's ubiquitous. It's everywhere you go. And so that's why the image not found, I thought there was something there. But it was only later on that I worked out how to make that work. I made a fan that would speed up or slow down based on internet data usage. And that was trying to manifest the feeling of what like a data center might be. And I tried to go to a data center, nobody would let me see one. So again, I was just like grappling at this nothingness. I was the lucky of the internet. Until I started to think, right, okay, so we've got human and internet, and then we've got physical and non-physical. And what's in the middle is kind of like this metaverse third space of, I think this is where my project exists. So then it was about trying to manifest that. So this diagram is upside down. What you've got here is you've got human and internet. And I've plotted various things on there. It's quite difficult to see now, it's upside down. But what I discovered was that my project kind of existed in the third space, which is like that central territory. So there is like right in the middle, the thing with the fish on is a live stream that's coded in a program called Hydra, and it's an aquarium. I think it's New York's aquarium, overlaid with a live stream webcam feed of Times Square. And the idea is that if you've got two places and you sort of like superimpose them on top of each other, you end up with this third space that's not one, it's not the other, but it can't exist without either of them. And so I thought, okay, this is maybe where my project exists. So I started talking to internet bots, and that was when I formulated this idea of the virtual design studio, because I thought, well, if I want to talk about the internet, perhaps the best way is to start to talk to bots about it. So there was just me at home sat on my computer, and what we did was we started scripting content. So I would take some text, I would plug it into one of the bots and then take it back again and then plug it into another bot. And we started to generate some imagery. So this, again, sort of harks back to the non-place thing I was saying earlier, because this image here is built from like, I don't know how to describe it, like neural network image textures. So you type words into the image generator and then it would pull textures from things that it knows to formulate an image. And so you can kind of interpret this image how you want to. But for me, I kind of see it as like some screens up here and then maybe like desks and chairs. So perhaps like, because I was talking to the bots about the virtual design studio, the stuff that we were putting in there was like two bots and a human talking together to make design about the internet. And this is what the generative engine came up with. And then after I'd done that for quite a long time, so we're talking scripts with these bots of like 24,000 words or so. So this went on for a long time. Eventually this image came up, and this was the first image that I could definitely see something in. And I don't know about you guys, but I can see a definite tree in the foreground and then some form of house in the background, and then what looks like an internet data center in the middle. And so I thought, right, that's it, that's perfect, that's what I've been trying to do this whole time. And so then what I did is I found another bot to help me translate this image into a 3D rendering. And so then I finally had something physical, and I've just got it in a box up here, so I'll grab it out for you. This is the 3D print from that sketch. And finally, I was like, okay, so I can start to manifest the internet in physical things. But then when I was holding this image, this object in my hand, I was like, this isn't the final thing. This isn't good enough. And so what I decided I needed to do was find a way to stream it back onto the internet. And Anthony Dunn says something interesting in Hertzian Tales, where he says, a slight strangeness is key. Too weird and they are instantly dismissed. Not strange enough and they're absorbed into everyday reality. And I find that this object of what me and the bots eventually decided to name the digital warehouse for the virtual design studio was kind of perfect on that boundary. You know, like it was strange enough, but not too strange, and still left room for a viewer's imagination. So that's it there, sat in my kitchen. And this is how we streamed it back to the internet. So we used Hydra, which is the program I mentioned earlier, and used like CAM functions to call this object into the browser, but then also overlaid it with an audio visualizer in the same window to try and create that third space, to try and manifest the internet, and to try and understand that space between that I was talking about. So that's the digital warehouse existing in the metaverse. I should probably stop talking now because I've been talking for quite a long time, but I'll leave that up there while we do questions. So that's just a kind of better explanation of what the virtual design studio is. Thank you.
Thank you, Emma. Does anyone have any questions for Emma? You can just leave them in the chat, or
I saw that Tamagotchi, big mood. Yeah. Thank you for the imagery comment, Rachel. Pixel promises. Oh, thanks, Emily.
Just to say, beautifully presented, really interesting project.
Thank you.
What do you think you're going to continue it now, or what would you say would be the next step if you did carry this on now?
I think I kind of resolved like the anxiety a little bit, because I knew there was this undefined space. And what me and the bots did was ended up creating this sort of data dictionary. So we had things in there like definitions for the metaverse, which is like the third space, or talking about like entities, like places where this disconnect between like real and virtual can exist in like a physical thing or like an object or an idea. And that helped me to sort of ground a lot of things in the absence of like physicality. What I really want to do is do some sort of further unpicking of like the conversations I had with the bots, because it's really difficult to share that with people at the minute, because the logs go on for so long, but there's like little intricacies in there. Like when a bot said to me, and how exactly is this going to work? And I'm sitting there at my desk thinking, well, I don't know how it's going to work. Like, let's chat some more and see if we can work it out. So I really need to find a way of doing that. And I think just time will do that. Yeah. Let me see if I can see any other questions. What was your goal at the start again, and how did this change toward the end? Was it just manifesting the anxiety or feeling of the internet in physical space? So what I worked out quite early on was that I was looking between the internet, and I called that the internet disconnect. And really, I just devised a system to understand that. I think that was the goal, was to like, because the system was the solid thing, and then anything else that came out of that was kind of loose. I hope that answers your question, Ash. what's your favorite online bot? My favorite online bot is probably Transformer, like Talk to Transformer, and I think it's a GPT-2 neural network thing, but it's brutal. Like, some of the things that Transformer would say would be like, why have you done this, or what are you doing now, or you know, one time I said something to it, and like me and Botnik would kind of talk to each other and then ask Transformer something, and Transformer would completely like shut it down, which was really challenging. What have you done with the objects that you made for the whip? Where do they exist now? They exist in a plastic box under the desk. Because I was just getting so frustrated with physical computing. Like, it got to a point where I just couldn't do it anymore. So I outsourced the coding stuff to bots. Yeah. Thank you. I think that's me done. So next up we have Emily Blake, and she's made some beautiful, beautiful dolls. And she's going to do an interview around her process and research, accompanied by an improvised making process. So it's the full shebang.
Excellent. Thank you, Emma. Yes, I think how this can work is essentially as panelists will just sort of ask Emily about her process and her work as she's working, and if there's any attendees that want to ask questions, you can either put them in the chat and we'll ask for you, or I think there's a feature where you can raise your hand and we'll allow you to speak directly to Emily. Yeah, I think we'll start with that. I
was going to do like a little brief summary of why I'm doing it.
Yeah.
So, in short, my project is about basically creating a relevant space for role models for people of colour. As I found growing up, especially living in the UK, it's you're kind of under the impression that you have to be white to succeed, or that's the impression that my school gave me. And I use the process of slip casting, or not really slip casting anymore because of corona, but is that a good angle?
Yeah.
Sick. Yeah, of casting to show like the repetition of microaggressions, racism and whatnot. And I can recontextualize materiality, such as like using tea and coffee to stain the dolls' bodies to make the relevant skin color of the dolls. So those materials have a direct connection with colonialism, the slave trade and Silk Road trade. And by putting them in a positive context, like you're acknowledging that history whilst showing that, you know, that happened, and it doesn't make anyone less of a human than others. Does that make sense? I don't know if that makes sense. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So yeah, at this current moment, I'm making a doll's head out of Jesmonite, as I don't have access to a kiln in lockdown, and using like a silicone mold to produce the head. And yeah, so yesterday I prepared the other half, which is a completely dried part of the Jesmonite mold. And ideally, I'm hoping this is going to be the right consistency, that I can finish this in the 15 minutes. Feels like really steady cook. So I can just sandwich the two parts together and they should stick together. But yeah, the project kind of uses beauty of doll making to talk about the ugliness that comes with being a person of colour, because in Ruth Frankenberg's Displacing Whiteness, she talks about how women of colour are on this slippery slope of being this exotic beauty to be, wait, I don't know how to word this, from being exotic beauty to unfeminicity and ugliness. And I feel like I've felt both ends of those spectrums with just peers in my past making me feel unwanted because of my light skin colour. So I'm just, you know, it's a nice little, can I swear on this? I think that was a yes from Jack.
I mean, why not?
Okay, so this project's basically a nice little fuck you to the people who've said all the nice racist things to me. But yeah, so I haven't done this in a while, so I think this is the right consistency. But if anyone has any questions, I'm sure I've missed out quite a massive chunk, but yeah.
Didn't you make the for people, like specific people?
Oh yeah, so the 3 people that I've made for my project is Juliet Uzol, which was the winner of the Sewing Bee last year, if anyone watched that. Just narrate what I'm doing now. So the Jasmonite is semi-setting, and it's kind of like this sugar icing consistency. So this is the time where I just stick it to the other piece, basically. And I also made a doll of my ceramics teacher, Susie Huang, and a performance artist, Zinzi Marsh. And I interviewed them, asking their experience within like racism within their industry and how it's affected their personal growth and how they display their identity in their industry to kind of combat that. I feel like this is not going to work.
Rachel has a question, which is, how did you learn to make the dolls?
Honestly, I just kind of guessed, hope for the best. Well, I knew about the jasmoniting, like paint jasmonite into thin layers to create this like fragile frame or fragile structure, kind of like slip casting. Because I kind of wanted to keep the, I mean, here's a good little example of how thin you can get jasmonite. So I wanted to keep the fragility and the whiteness of slip casting, as I was going to use porcelain, which kind of links to the, well, it links to the Silk Road trade, to comment on the fragility of having these conversations about racism when, yeah, I think, I mean, you kind of just need to get over the uncomfortable stage of talking about it and just kind of face it. Yeah.
In what kind of spaces will you put these, or where are they intended for?
So I've made the little zines for each doll, just here, which documents all the interviews and the person's practice and making these dolls, and they would be ideally distributed within schools. And these dolls, which I will reveal at the end, are intended for the participant or the role model. So it's kind of like a reflection of their worth, but also I aim to bring these role model dolls into schools and have like completely blank dolls where it could be used in a workshop and kids can make their own role model of their own, using the role models that I've made as like a basis as such. So yeah, but Corona. Yeah. Any other questions? Oh, up here, it's just drying at the moment.
I had a question about relating to a topic that you discussed in one of our podcast episodes, which was on the Elle Germany magazine that came out a couple of years ago, and whether you could talk about how that magazine specifically kind of influenced your research and sort of your idea around maybe how it influenced the sort of materials that you're working with, if at all.
So yeah, I don't know, for anyone who doesn't know, there was a magazine that happened last year in November 2019 from Elle Germany, and the issue was called Back to Black, where there was a lot of imagery of just offensive images and grouping models of colour and saying that never have before models of colour have been in like such demand. And I think even the word demand and putting that word onto like a human body just commodified the whole notion of race, which frankly pissed me off. And it was just, I don't know, it was just, why are we still seeing things like that in magazines when there was more of a diverse mix within an editorial, like the editorial stage, because obviously these magazines have to go through a group of people to be accepted, like, oh, this is fine to put out. But I would say, like, say if there was like at least like one, I don't know if there was any people of colour there, but the backlash that it got, it's just, yeah, unbelievable, basically. So I started looking around like why there were so many disadvantages. I mean, that sounds very basic, but yeah, I think it just sparked my fascination of popular culture and theory, which I'm quite interested in, and seeing how such an accessible media or ideology can be so corrupt. Whereas the stuff that I was reading about, I mean, I've just filtered through quite a few papers, and I don't feel that is as accessible as, say, a magazine, and trying to find a way to make that information more accessible. Kind of stemmed my project. That was a lot of waffle, sorry. This is when it's not going to work, but I think it's dry. But it's fine, because I've got here's one I made earlier. Oh, it's also very thin because I don't think I brought enough jasmonite with me. It's already cracked. So yeah, I mean, even if this doesn't work, it kind of just shows the trial and error that you know, the fight for equality is like. Yeah, this has not worked at all. So yeah, doing this whole slip casting process at home, it's been difficult to say the least, but we've got half of it. That'll do. Super glue that on later. Thank you, Jack, thank you. But yeah, so now, if I don't break it even more, I should be able to crack this piece out. Okay. It's kind of like a Kinder egg, to be honest. Okay, so you kind of get the principle behind it. Okay, so, and now, apart from this, we have a hollow China doll head. And yeah, so I made this head like without any like defining features, so I could edit its appearance by just painting on its features and not having any like yeah, racially signifying features. So here is one of the dolls. This is my ceramics teacher, Susie. She is currently doing her, or like redoing her ceramics studio with her partner Nam at Ceramics. And I chose her because she's helped me quite a lot, like last year, and Nam, to develop my ceramics process and kind of help me understand this whole slip casting process a bit better. This is Juliette Duzor, the winner of Sewing Bee. Clearly, I would not be the winner of Sewing Bee because of the shoddy sewing. She went to a wedding in, I think, Uganda, and yeah, she wore this lovely little dress that she made, and yeah, I felt like, especially with this one, looking back at all her images and her whole like online persona, kind of gave me a different sort of respect for her, because she shows her practice as well as embracing her heritage, which is really lovely and just really nice to see. And finally, probably the hardest one to make because I have no idea how to sew, and I made a hoodie. This is Zinzi Marsh, a performance artist. And yeah, so I met Zinzi in second year, and they're currently doing dance. And they've had quite a few issues of people of colour being underrepresented within the dance industry, and yeah, and just talking to them on how they are dealing with it or how they would change the curriculum to make it more equal. Sure, yeah. Don't know what else to say, but yeah, it's my little head, my little broken head, but there we go. So Sophie's asking how long did it take me to make the mold itself, and what was the process like, and has the process of making these dolls changed my relationship with the models? So these silicone molds, I have 10 of them, and I roughly worked out it took me over 24 hours to make just these molds, let alone the things that I was casting from them, so just a lot of hours. Yeah, no, I think definitely making the dolls individually has changed my perspective of the person and the relationship with these dolls, because just linking up like the fragility of talking about something, and having the participant to have that like vulnerability, and that exchange kind of gave this kind of strength to it, and it's quite liberating, and it was just, yeah, I kind of wish I had that growing up, whereas talking to my school, which I probably shouldn't have, they are saying that the way that they show role models for the, I say students of colour, sure, is through infographics and displays when, yeah, which I don't really agree with, but what can you, I mean, you can do something, but yeah, it's a whole other thing. But I think definitely making these dolls have given me like a new level of respect, because I've spent so much time, like, sounds weird, but analysing someone, and seeing their vulnerabilities is showed, like, it's quite intimate, and I very much enjoyed it. Yeah.
It's great. Thank you very much, Emily. That was really nice. Really important to see those actually in the virtual realm anyway. But yeah, no, they look fantastic. Great stuff. I think what we're going to do now is to have another sort of 5-minute break, and then we'll come back to the third and final part of our event today, which will be started with Isabella. So yeah, feel free to go and refresh, and we'll be back with you in 5 minutes or so. Thank you very much to everyone who's watched so far, and we'll see you soon. Okay, so hello everyone who is with us. We're gonna start off again with Isabella, who's going to take us through her project work. Isabella, would you like to introduce what you're going to be doing with us today?
Yes, so I'm going to be just reading a little bit about my project's methods and do a little workshop which I call Malleable Memory, which is just a hint at a workshop. So I'm happy to start. So I'm just going to share my screen. Okay. So throughout this course, there have been projects and talks that address the issue of the other or otherly. Things which we can often see, yet somehow something's a bit off. Or it feels like you can reach out and stretch your fingers out, yet not quite grasp it. And that space of difference can become scary, especially when that otherly thing moves towards you. So imagine you're told that soon you will begin to lose your memories. There is a sudden realization that you could lose yourself. Memories make us who we are. They are things. Memories make us who we are. They are things that have happened or will be created. Linear moments that are just reality. But what if memory was malleable? If we could exist outside of memory? It's widely illustrated in myths and stories that to be forgotten is a fate worse than death. It's a huge human fear of impermanence. Now, to talk about what I've done in this project. Throughout the year, I have created a series of experiences with my grandmother. 1 second, sorry, wrong image. I've created a series of experiences for my grandmother, Rosemary, who has dementia, a condition of memory loss. These experiences have merged my memories and experiences of Canarian culture from living in the Canary Islands with her Welsh culture, and included travelling to La Palma, one of the Canary Islands. These experiences allowed for her to walk into different contexts, all stemming from places related to memory. They bring together different cultures, geographic locations and times, what we created was something new, something that neither of us had experienced. This then allowed me to stop playing the role of a carer and stand beside my grandmother, observing the unknown as an equal. I captured her interactions through film, in a meditative state. She did not acknowledge there was a camera, and I just focused on things she glanced at. It was relaxing because I wasn't planning or thinking, simply observing, and the camera became like an extension of myself, and it forced me to focus on detail after detail. I began to feel like some kind of cyber dog, following my gran and leaving any external interaction to her. In this sense, it was a way of filming that considered her freedom. This allowed me to observe my grandmother in her innate state of being, and beautiful stories emerged from simply placing these realities together and stepping back and watching. This, at the start, was also frustrating. I did not feel like I was creating something, because it felt like I was recording rather than making. This process was really about trusting what I was doing and letting it develop by itself throughout time. And to explain what the point of doing this is, the effort of travelling and filming experiences, it was about learning to build something together, even if it was mostly forgotten, giving value to the residual fragments of memory, allowing every moment to hold value, and acknowledging that every moment has an effect, even if it's not remembered. It still exists. Yet when it comes to a condition of memory loss, it is not a linear existence. It's more like a flurry of dust. This project stands against the notion that if you can't remember it, it has no importance. It's about finding ways to approach the reality of an other, such as memory loss. I created a loop where we span around through different contexts, and then I collected the residues and began to create something with them. In my case, I made a film, but this method could be applied to any other medium of expression. Through this looping process, memory becomes a building material for other narratives, and the condition of memory loss stops being about loss and becomes an opportunity for playfulness, creative acts, and the hybrid merging of thoughts, traditions, and places. Memory is a weightless morphing substance that we can use to both archive moments and visualize an idea to create awareness. I'm going to do a tiny workshop now, and it's an example of how you might apply these ideas yourself. If you would like to find a piece of paper and a pen from your space, then return here. I will give you 1 minute to do so. And I have a little clock of my grandmother's that she kindly lent me. So I'm going to start now. So if you would like, you can have 1 minute to find a piece of paper and a pen. Okay, now we've slowed down, and if you like, you have a pen and a paper. I would like you to draw a loop. This loop can be as big or small as you feel. Draw it anywhere on the page, and then write 3 words that hold a memory. Anywhere on the loop. You have 30 seconds to write 3 words on the loop which you've drawn on the piece of paper. We will start again from now. So again, that's 3 words, any 3 words that are from memory. It can be the first thing that comes to mind. I hope that that was enough time. So the next part is a little bit more practical. I'll give you 2 minutes to film something or take a picture in your surroundings that is somehow relatable to one of the words which you have written on your loop. It can be abstract. Don't think too much about it. So you have 2 minutes to find anything and take a picture or a small film clip. We will start now. It can just be with your phone, it's absolutely fine. So that was 2 minutes. It can seem a long time, but in the reality of my grandmother, time morphs and doesn't really have any meaning anymore. What's meaningful is the next action. Now, the next part you'll have to imagine. But just before that, I would like you to think of one word that describes the film or image you have taken. This could be anything. It could be a descriptive word. Say you took a picture of a glass of water. It could be liquid, transparent. It could be a feeling. Anything that is related. And once you have that word which describes the image or the picture you have taken, write it beside the original word which inspired that action. So in which case now on your loop you will have the 3 words, and then you'll have your second word which you have written besides the word that inspired you to take your image. I hope that's clear enough. So I'm just going to talk through because, yeah, the next bit, and we will imagine as if you are continuing. Imagine you continue to expand this loop, word by word, action by action. You spin around and collect things, a quote, a thought, and you keep writing it. And as you write it, you begin to expand the loop, connecting a new layer of words and collecting different fragments of film or image. Now you can share these memories. You can walk out and sit on your sofa and imagine you find a family member sitting there. Now you can create collective words together. You can include someone and allow them to step into your loop. This is how my project was created. And I suggest you to try this yourself. Keep this mini exercise going and give importance to the random flow of memories and actions that we weave into our lives. So how does this process actually change anything? Well, by creating movement, you are creating new, unscripted memories. This can be a tool to reflect on which moments matter to you. If you're working with another person, then these experiences can reflect back into your relationship with that person. In the case of my gran, she doesn't remember these experiences, yet I help care for her and they have changed me, which reflects back into her life. And then, when you feel like stopping, you can either begin to piece the collected moments from your multi-layered loop together to create something new, such as I have done with my film, or just allow the whole experience to drift away. And if there is someone or something you may feel like exists in an otherly realm, you may find new ways of approaching them and understanding them, seeing them for who they are without projecting linear, established narratives and values onto them. It's kind of an act of humbling oneself and stepping into someone's experience. This project, instead of trying to understand or feel the fear or confusion of this condition of memory loss, it shows an alternative way where we can still face the unknown, but make it exciting, playful, and totally unmemorable. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Isabella. That was lovely. That was very personal, insightful. Just quickly, does anyone, any attendees have any questions, quick questions for Isabella on that? You can write them in the chat if you want to.
There's a question, what shall we do with the photos? Not quite, I don't quite understand what you mean. Could you maybe clarify, Alison? Well, I understand it as saying, what will I be doing with the photography or the film afterwards? And in a way, the film is a window into this project, and the visuals help to explain my ideas. So yeah, I feel like it could exist in different spaces, but mostly as a tool to try to visualize what my grandmother's going through, her experience, her emotional experience, because that's quite hard to step into from an outside perspective. Have you looked at how different people create loops or similar exercises and what this says about different types of people? Well, I guess it really does depend on the person you're working with, and it depends on their skills. And also, if you're working with someone with memory loss, there's a lot of different conditions that have different effects. So I am beginning to expand it, and I would like to work with other carers, and each experience is going to be very much tailored to the person I'm working with. But the essence is that it doesn't matter who the person is and what creative tools we use to begin to build something. The idea is that we have this approach of walking towards something and seeing it in a positive light. And my grandmother, and there's another question, did your grandma help me with the activities? Did she enjoy them? She's the star of my whole project, so she was present in all of the activities. They were made for her, and me and other people who participated through it were also enjoyed the experiences. It's quite challenging traveling with someone with memory loss. It was quite a process organizing all of these different things and contexts for her, but at the same time they also related to my memories. So it was this kind of transitional space where we could both step into something together and eliminate that hierarchy which can often exist in these kind of cared for relationships.
Thank you very much once again. Now we're going to move on to Yena, who's going to give a demonstration of her Sticky Data Lab website, as well as giving a talk about her process. So over to you, Yena.
Hello, can you all hear me? Cool. So my name is Yena, and today I have prepared a presentation of my final project in a more like a classic style, where I talk about my concept, show the outcome with a demonstration, and sharing some of the processes as well. So I'll quickly do the screen sharing thing. Yeah, so from the start, I was interested in exploring human interaction with digital technologies and how the digital world has formed itself around us. And within that, I looked into individuals consuming free online services and products like Facebook, Google, Amazon, in exchange for their personal information and being exposed to targeted advertisements. We might all understand that the collection, analysis, prediction, and utilization of digital information based on our clicks, swipes, views, likes, purchases, behaviors have been the standard of the current digital culture. And my concern came in when companies are constantly tracking, profiling, targeting, and influencing each individual across platforms, devices, and live contexts without people's consent and proper knowledge. So some of the extreme examples could include Cambridge Analytica and Ed Snowden scandal, as you might all know. And so the invisible digital operation hides itself behind misdirection, euphemism, and mendacity. So I think it is worrying that this digital manipulation system is shaping humans' everyday behavior, which flattens individualism and threatens identity as well. So surveillance capitalism has been the central theme that I have navigated throughout my year, which is described by scholar Shoshana Zuboff as radically disembedded and extractive variant of information capitalism based on the commodification of reality and its transformation into behavioral data for analysis and sales. I have been investigating this idea more, and the project focused on exploring the uneven power structure of companies and individuals and questioning the relationship that has been formed between the two. And I considered and tried to answer the questions of how can we imagine the social in a new way and engage with this system differently? How can self-sovereign identity be designed and implemented? And lastly, how can I communicate the severity of this matter and help others to be well informed? So I have designed something called Sticky Data Lab, which is a lab studio space that design and creates various experiments and interventions. It exists as a digital platform where individuals can view, interact, and participate in both virtual and physical space. And I want to talk about the several aims of Sticky Data Lab, which is allowing visitors to have a critical viewpoint and engagement on the current digital system and economy, especially the long-term effects of surveillance capitalism. Next one is being aware and conscious, re-examine values and relationship one has with digital culture that leads to a change the way that they interact with the internet and services. And the last one is opening up the discourse with other people. Sticky Data Lab is situated in the current time frame, but it looks out to the nearest future when designing the activities. I set the users that are young adults who owns a smartphone, computer, or smart device. I would say this project is special in a way that people can use their real-time data sets, which generates different unique outputs each time. Now I'm going to show you the outcomes within Sticky Data Lab and go through the processes as well. Okay, so this is the website that I have designed. I would say Sticky Data Lab isn't a complicated space. It can be used through the interaction with the web. And I'm just going to scroll down quickly so that you can feel the general vibe. Hope you can all see this right now. Yeah, so on the top right hand, where it says experiments, there are several lists of contents, and each square will take you to a new page. And there are descriptions and instructions for those that the audience can partake themselves. So I'm going to click into the first one, which is called Daily Vlog. I have been creating a set of videos myself, engaging with the ad keywords to explore the power dynamic between individuals and the surveillance capitalists. Ad keywords is a data set that companies like Google and Instagram has on their users. And I'm just going to show you where you can find the ad settings keyword. Basically, you go to your settings and there is this thing called ad personalization. If you click onto this, it will bring you to different sets of keywords every day, every hour. And also for Instagram, there's like, you go to settings and click privacy and security, and which says add interest here. And I think normally Instagram has more ad keywords and they're more specific, while Google keywords can be a bit more like general, and I think it has like limitations on how many keywords they can have on individuals. So this is basically what they do is they foretell the individual's interests based on their online activity and target them with customized advertisements. So for example, Google might think that I am into investing, jazz, Nintendo, or politics, so that they can target me with these relevant contents and advertisements. And I was interested in the ad keywords in general because the smart yet not perfect algorithm might show words that are accurate and relatable, but at the same time, some can be very strange, random, unknown, irrelevant. And this focus leads to form this triangular relationship between who Google thinks I am, who I truly am, and who I think I am. So I conducted this experiment by using 3 keywords every day. Well, not every day, but I would say daily. And carry out like a random task, which is like, for example, create a pattern image, shopping at Amazon, writing a movie plot, or performing with like a green screen. And then there will be an unexpected and unique outcomes that are generated each time. So for example, one of the experiments I enjoyed was using these 3 keywords called wedding, proactive, and something called UGC. And I'll kind of briefly like scroll around. I normally do a research on my ad keywords and find those 3 keywords that I find unrelevant to me. And then I use this spinning wheel here where, oh, it's not showing, where you can click onto it and it will tell you what to do. So then I will like search all of these relevant things that come from my research, and then I would generate this pattern image at the end. with some music on the background. But and normally at the end, I would have like a brief conclusion of how my experiment was and what I felt by engaging with these each keyword. And on the right-hand side, I have this little instructions where other people can try it as well. There's this spinning wheel here where you can click onto it as well, which is not showing at the moment. So that's the first one. And the next one is called Add Identity. I'm just going to read out what I explained it here. Targeted and personalized advertisements. Could they be treated as another part of an individual's digital identity? I've been gathering all of the online ads that appeared on my screens for around 2 weeks. I collaged them together, later forming patterns on each element, creating animation, and got it printed on a sheet of fabric, which is 1 meter by 3 meters. And I used this as an installation and tried projection mapping on a t-shirt as a way of representing one's identity. Additionally, it was a practice of putting myself into a position to pattern the patternizers. So with this outcome, it was like a long process. I think it took around like 657 screenshots for a bit more than 2 weeks. And I want to show you how I collaged them together. So I used this After Effects program. I kind of tried to lay every element out like neatly. And then I have to give like each element different effects to create patterns. I'm not sure. So as you can see, it slowly seems to generate these patterns and show itself. So yeah, this is the Add Identity experiment. And back to the next experiment, which is Reverse Project. So this one started by encountering a piece of news that Facebook used sentiment analysis to target young teenagers who are potentially vulnerable to commercial advertisements. With the indignation at companies using individuals' behavioral data to predict emotions and then feed them with ads, I designed a fictional setting with the question of, what if we reverse the system by choosing the ads we prefer to consume and define our own emotions? So I found this data set from Google, which has like highly specific attributes they use to identify individuals' interests. As you can see, like user interest, mobile application, or where you are, location, age range, whether you're a parent or not, gender, what mobile device you use, and also this thing called verticals has like a long set of list of ad keywords, which then goes to like target individuals with more specific like personalized advertisements basically. So I kind of gathered all of these data sets that Google has, which was around 6,000 plus keywords. And so I used this, and also I used 120 emotions that Facebook has in its users as well, which has on their user. So if I go back to my experiment, I printed the emotions, the feelings out on a piece of paper, and I used the Google keywords. I didn't print out all of the 6,000 keywords, but it's around, I think, 800 to 1,000 keywords. And I made this installation where users can use a colored thread to determine their fields, and then use the colored thread to pick which advertisements one wishes to watch. So there's no sound with this video, but you can quickly see what it's like. So yeah, then you'll see the advertisements from the keywords that you chose to consume. Yeah, so this is this. And lastly, I want to show you this project, which is called Take a Break. And basically, I made a set of physical exercises that encourage people to take a break from processing data and give a good stretch on their body, which aims to stimulate digital well-being and hygiene. As you can see, there's this motion tracking that helps people to follow the exercises more accurately. And this great thing will function as a mirror because you can see yourself doing that if you turn on the webcam. So I recommend everyone trying this out. You'll feel great. Yeah, for this outcome, I started by researching some pre-existing body exercises, postures, and then I customized the routines, created some new ones as well to make it more relaxing and effective as possible. And I used a green screen to merge the nature backgrounds because that's what I think people should more look at. And some of you might wonder what this skeleton thing lines are, and it's called something called PoseNet, which is an open source machine learning code that tracks human movement. And there are a lot of tutorials on how to use this, so try this out if this interests you. Yeah, so I think this is it for now. If you've enjoyed this and found it interesting, you can visit stickydatalab.xyz. I'll paste the link in the chat. Please have a look and you can see my work more in detail. And I recommend you to give yourself an experience with your own data set and hope that this will be an opportunity to think deeply around the theme that I've been talking about and the relationship that you have with the digital systems and technologies. Yeah, so I'd be happy to answer any questions or receive feedback either on the Zoom or through my website. Thank you for listening, watching.
Thank you, Yena. That was great. That's really great stuff. There's loads of very various things on there. It's very cool. Good stuff. Does anyone have any very quick questions for Yena before we move on to our final participants today? Some comments there.
I think we can move on for the next final people.
Yeah. Thank you to everyone who has stayed with us for today. And now we're going to move on to the very final happening, which is Daphne Hamilton-Jones, Yijun Sophie, and Signe Nagahiro. And they will be conducting a three-way interview about their processes and their work. So over to you, you three.
Sydney! Yeah. Hi. Hello, welcome to our interview. Daphne. Where did Daphne go? Daphne! Oh, there you are. You are on the next page. Okay. So, today you will find out how we pushed our practice through these difficult times. So could you hang on? Wait, I can't hear Daphne. Oh. Daphne, we can't hear you. Oh, it looks like she's talking to somebody.
Maybe Sydney, you can just start talking about it.
Yeah. So Daphne, Sophie, and I worked together a lot before the pandemic, and we were talking with different design groups and learning about design from a lot of different angles. So I'll talk about my project first. I focused on education and play in physical objects. And I think, as you can see in my virtual background, you can see some of the projects that I did. So I worked a lot with the Science Museum, working with their early years curator, working on development in specifically design objects. So like how people learn to grasp and like play with water and that kind of thing. And then the pandemic hit, and I came home and I was really forced to rethink my project with limited resources, space, and social contact. So this connected me to my research on adventure playgrounds, which started as an escape from wartime Denmark in the 1940s, and then was brought to England and turned into like all these different playgrounds that were that could have been like old construction sites or old like war bombed areas. So it was just the materials that they had were used for play. So during this quarantine, I was really inspired by the play and activities people were doing at home and the things that I was seeing on like the news and social media. So this made me think about play at home and how I can be playing actively. So I will share my screen now. And can you see that?
Yeah, we can see it.
Okay, great. Yeah, you can see like some of the news stories that I was looking at, and some of the Instagram things I saw. And then I was looking at different play principles. So here are some of them. There's familiarization play, and then like expressive play, like using materials to express yourself, and then all of them together. That's all of them together. I don't know if I can move this, but yeah, so I defined like 8 play principles that I then took into my own design practice. And then I took this idea of creation and destruction and took things that I found around my house and in my surrounding neighborhoods. Like I didn't want to buy anything to not, because the quarantine's restrictions became my project restrictions. So I took this idea of creation and destruction, and then I applied it to my objects. So I found this like old bed frame on the side of the road, and I took these like initial pieces, and then that was like the original intent, and then I changed it using the existing pieces into a new and more playful thing. So I created this seesaw bench, which rocks back and forth, and it plays. Then I define the play principles, and so it uses manipulative play, so like working together and manipulating the object, and then physical play, which is like using your balance. And then I made this trash bag jacket, which plays with like sound play, because it's really like the crinkling of the material, and then it's very tactile when you're opening and closing the bags and stuff like that. And then I created this hoodie out of these old soccer socks that I had. My sister and I played soccer a lot when we were younger, and it's like self-isolation, and yeah. And then the sling, which I'll like kind of speed through these a little bit so that I'll have time for Sophie and Daphne. Yeah, like playing with physical play and manipulation again. This is just like an example of the materials I used and where I found them. We have like all these old fabric samples, and then I created this jacket that kind of plays with the idea of like sensory play and touch and your 5 senses. And then I found this old chair and I was wanting to create this like expanding structure. So yeah, you can just watch the little video for now. And then I created a sweater with using knitting, and I dyed the wool and I took apart a sweater, and then I created this sweater with really long arms, so like you're really aware of your like wingspan, I guess. And then you can also like wear it with somebody else, and then you're really aware of their movements and you have to kind of match them with your own. Kind of, yeah, so I played a lot with that, and here are all of the and then I kind of decided to take this idea of here it is, the restrictions I had, and then I wanted to share with other people. So I created this idea of these collage guidelines that sort of mirrored the ones that I used to make my own objects. And so yeah, so it like had to have a 3D element. Sorry, somebody just turned on a machine. And then I asked people, my like friends in social media, to like do these collages that took the same elements that I used in my own objects, where you're like taking things apart and putting them back together in new and like playful ways. And then yeah, and then sharing it on social media. So then here are like all my projects together. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, so Sophie or Daphne, do you want to go next?
I'll go on. Okay, cool. I'll be very brief, I think. Maybe I'll share my screen as well. Okay. So that's, yeah, that was the, the PowerPoint for the 3 of us. And here's, okay, I just have a couple of images for mine. I just did a project about design and education. I used an array of different tools to help children with motivation. And I presented that at the end of the year with the use of animation, which was a very interesting kind of aspect of my year, because I lost touch basically with the children I was working with, and decided to use animation to kind of wrap the whole thing up, which is a very useful kind of design tool to have, to be able to find different ways to present things. So I created 4 kind of step-by-step learning tools. So the first one was this one. It was a learning path based on taste. The second one was based on narratives. I don't have a picture of it here. You'll see some later on. The third was based on curriculum-led stuff. So that's this, the second image, the GIF. So I kind of created worksheets based on the curriculum. And the very last one was a digital one. So I brought these worksheets kind of online when COVID-19 started, and I realized that education at home was like a priority. And that's pretty much it. That's where I'm at now. I've kept developing my projects. Okay, Sophie?
Okay. So my project is about using the medium of game to create an understanding of our relationship with cyberspace. So I did a lot of research on online activism and like street protests. So at the end, I created a video game that creates awareness about the impacts of social media on the real world, especially in a political landscape. So I attempt to develop my design practice to deliver information and creating like understanding about complicated topics and systems. So should we move on to the question?
Sydney, do you want to ask a question? I'll try and move the slides. Okay. Oh yeah, okay.
Yeah, that's the trailer of the game, which it's based on the narrative of how it started and transformed from a digital context to the city itself, which I just focus on one narrative from the online activism.
I love your graphics, Sophie, every time I see them. Could you share an inspirational design studio that was useful for your project?
Oh, there's the one from Barcelona we visited, which is called Domestic Data Streamer. They did a lot of like different exhibition objects and like activities to display data and information. So I was trying to create different diagrams and visuals and objects to present my research about the link between cyberspace and physical space, but I find it really difficult to engage people. So talking to the founder, he teach me about using design to humanize information and data, and he suggests using a lot of metaphors and using emotions to deliver information to people, and that become one of my goals in my project.
Cool. Yeah, I remember you talked about this quite a lot. Why did you decide to make a video game? I feel like, yeah, that was an important thing.
Because I have so much information in my research, which is like a comprehensive timeline of like a single narrative that started from social media. But then it's really hard to tell a story to people when they confronted with like complicated topics. Some people were just like overwhelmed and unable to absorb the information. So I'm trying to use this immersive medium to like connect people, and usually the entertainment aspect can attract people as well. So I'm trying to use games like deliver information to my audience.
Cool. Well, I feel like, yeah, we're low on time. Should we move on to questions for Sydney? Do you have any, Sophie?
Yeah, I have some. So Sydney, your project is about play, and how did you decide to work on play? Sir,
Good question. Well, like I was kind of saying before, I was really interested in education like Daphne, and Daphne and I kind of started on like the same path of education, meeting with the same people, and then we eventually like split up at some point, and I went like the more physical route, and then working with the Science Museum helped me like define how physical activities and play are really important for like mental health. And then during the pandemic, I decided to focus on playing in your house, like where space and materials might be limited. So, but there's still like creativity and play opportunities that you could find like even in your household. Yeah.
Okay, I have another question. Like, why do you think adults should play?
I think it's well, like through my research, the kinds of things that play is helpful for kids. Maybe it's kind of understanding your emotions through like dramatic play, or kind of coping with difficult times like the pandemic, or yeah, like those kinds of things. Those principles are still important, so why should we stop playing? Even physical things like practicing your balance on something like the bench, you know, it's not something that we ever stop doing, so why should we stop playing? Yeah.
It's pretty cool. How did yeah, I think you actually you kind of answered this earlier on. Sorry, I interrupted you, Sophie, but the way COVID-19 affected your project, you kind of talked about this earlier on when you said when you said you had to kind of like use the limitations of COVID-19. But did you find it really difficult to like move on to these limits, or?
I was kind of unsure at the beginning of where my project was going, even with like the science museum. So actually it really the like COVID-19 situation really forced me to put restrictions on my project, and then that helped shape like what I was doing. Yeah. Cool. And then how did COVID-19 like restrict your project, Daphne? Because you were meeting with children and.
Yeah. I mean, it's true. I'm just going to play my film in the background. But yeah, COVID-19 kind of broke all of my options in terms of like testing my projects, in a sense. I was hoping to get into schools right before COVID-19 struck, and then I was like, oh no, it's fine, I'll connect with parents at home, which didn't happen. Parents, I realized that in education at home, parents don't have time to like experiment with their kid on a new educational tool. They barely have time to help their child out with anything they're doing. But that was a very interesting kind of part of it all, so that's why I'm gonna, maybe I can move down to this, where like I realized that everything I'd done before, I visited museums, and I looked at all of these things, all the displays in science museums and things, and then I was like, oh, but there's ways I can like kind of create a digital museum in a way. Same in Barcelona, because we were doing research together, and we went to that wonderful museum called Cosmo Cakes, and that has so many things. It's really impressive. And that's how, and from all of that research, I was like, okay, but that doesn't really exist in the digital realm. Children have no freedom whatsoever, and that's how I decided to bring all of this online. On this website of different GIFs, that's still a prototype actually, but trying to contextualize learning in a freer way, and I think COVID-19 really helped me in a way to try to look for other paths.
Did you have any observations like of how children respond to your design at the end of your project?
That's a very interesting question, in the sense that I had a lot of mixed responses. Some worked incredibly well, but I'm still working on that right now. I'm still working with children and trying out new ways to do step-by-step learning. And it's true, children so what I did, but at the very, very beginning, I was very lucky. I was very lucky. I created a tool that was kind of made for one student that had a lot of trouble with motivation. And then, so I did that thing where I was like, what do you like? What do you dislike? What do you find okay in education? And she was like, oh, but I really love this, but I don't like this. And I kind of experimented with all of that, and we tried out this path. And she went so much faster once we'd started working in that direction. It was really incredible. So that really worked out. But sometimes I tried out things. So I tried that path out with another kid, and he was like, oh, but I like everything. But then he wasn't necessarily as productive, so I had to try something else.
Oh.
I think, yeah, in terms of time, I think it's if anyone wants to ask other questions, even in the chat. Maybe I'll stop screen sharing. Should I still screen share?
Up to you.
Oh, we're back. Okay, there's one question in the chat. How has the collaboration or support between the three of you helped each other? And do you guys want to, what do you think, Sydney?
I guess the connection between Daphne and I was really apparent in the beginning, and then discussing things with Sophie, it really influenced my project actually. So the use of like social media and gathering data on like play and how people were playing during quarantine really shaped my project. So I think in like the second half, I think Sophie and I maybe were more connected than Daphne and I, because we went in different paths, but we were all like always talking about each other's projects and giving each other resources, even if they were related, but somehow like they became related, which was really interesting to see. Yeah.
Do you have a word on that, Sophie? Really quick. Yeah, we'll wrap up really soon. We have one question in the chat saying, Sydney, was it easy to get adults to engage with play?
I would have loved to have, I think, well, my dad like loves art and is an architect, and so I think he was like really into it. My mom is not so much like that, so kind of having her engage in with some of the objects was really interesting. Obviously, I would have liked to test my objects with a broader range of people, but like with the people I had at my disposal at this time, like it was really interesting to see that. Yeah, hopefully I can have other people test my stuff out. But with the collages, a lot of adults actually helped with the collages, and they were interested in that and like asking me questions about that, which was great.
Sophie, how did you measure the success of your video game?
Not very good because it's not entertaining as I thought, but I still can engage people with the infographics and story of the video game, so it's like 50-50, I guess, maybe. Yeah.
Cool. There's a question for me apparently. How do I plan to expand my project to a larger audience? Or, oh, someone's asking to play the game, Sophie, by the way. Hannah's asking. So for me to expand my project to a larger audience or platform, actually, I think it's one of the interesting things that came up recently was ways in which I'm actually consulting with different people. So people who are educating on their side have started to ask me questions about how to engage with people, with kids and things, what kind of educational tools they might be able to use in their own specialty. So that's a very interesting thing. I've continued working with children in tutoring. I'm interested in working with more people and kind of like sharing the tools with other educators and getting that expanded in different ways, and using the step-by-step methodology I kind of devised. I mean, step-by-step is already really important in learning, but pushing that through the different things people actually teach, and trying these methods to develop motivation in lots of different contexts. So I think that's one of the big things I'm interested in, and yeah, trying to dialogue with other teachers and other educators and that sort of thing. Yeah, I think yeah, it's in terms of time we're aiming to wrap up now, aren't we, Jack?
Yeah, I think that was great. Like really kind of in sort of engaging like presentations where you all kind of got these overlapping sort of themes going on. So thank you very much for presenting those. Thank you. Yeah, I think that just about finishes us off for this event today. I'd like to thank you all again for attending today, and to the participants for presenting their work. We hope you've enjoyed everything that you've seen and heard. As a final note, please do visit our website at heylooksomethingisHappening.com, where you can see the work of all of us and the rest of our cohort on there, and read our publication, which is available to buy from the website for, I think, the price of postage, which is, Hannah, I think you said it was something like £2 something yesterday. which is pretty good. And also tune into our podcast series if you like, which is Hey Listen, Something is Happening on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Soundcloud, all the major sound applications, to hear more from our year group. Thank you all, and we will see you very soon. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye.